Hey guys, welcome back to another week of Collingwood Connection. It's the the morning after an unfortunate Easter Thursday night. The Magpies getting done up in Brisbane, pretty comprehensively by the Lions. But before we get into that, I'll welcome the Fossil down there in Patterson Lakes. How are we this morning, Foss?
Yeah, good, William. Thank you very much. Yeah, well, yeah, it was a hard watch last night, William. Thursday, we were just outplayed by a very good Brisbane Lions side, but it's only one game in the season, so hopefully, I think we've got 8 days to recover, and hopefully, they can pick themselves up and have a good performance over. I think it's 3-0 in Adelaide. So, yeah, no, it was not good, William, but they just weren't good enough on the night, and you got to give credit where it's due. Brisbane are a very good football team.
I think they're the best in it. Even though there's some teams like Gold Coast and Western Bulldogs showing early season form, Brisbane are definitely the benchmark of the competition. And even with five or six players out, they definitely showed the rest of the competition why. I'll get your first thoughts there, Fossil. Wasn't a very good night for us Magpie supporters.
No, it wasn't good at all, William. No, it made the long weekend, William, a longer weekend. Easter's going to feel like about 8 days instead of four. But that's the way it goes. Well, they were just too good and too strong. And like you said, they had players out. I know we had a few out too, but no, no excuses whatsoever. Well, they just got beaten by a better football team.
Yeah, exactly right. It was pretty, it wasn't too bad to start the game. It was pretty hot earlier on. I'll run us through the first quarter. We'll go from there. So, Nick Dacos are laid out 20 minutes before the bounce. That was Corky issue. They did some tests on him. Usually the physio runs through two or three different sort of tests, and he unfortunately failed those. So went off the ground. They really did try to get him up, but he just called it quits with about 20 minutes to go. So pretty shocking, news there for Collingwood supporters, and probably blew our chances from the start. Yeah, it was going to be hard, regardless if we had Nick playing or not. The Lions got off to a very good start. Kai Lohmann, two quick goals. He got one from ducking his head, which was pretty disappointing. I know you're going to touch on the umpires later, Fossil, but yeah, it was a pretty disappointing call there. But anyway, the Pies did hit back. Sullivan had a nice early intercept, which set up the McStay goal early, and he had a quick double himself. He caught a defender holding the ball not long after and put through his second. And then when the Pies got a bit of momentum, we were down 18 to 12. Lipinski had a great chance going forward. He had three options to choose from. And unfortunately, he popped it on the head of Schultze, which the Brisbane Lions defender intercepted and went straight down and kicked a goal. They absolutely make you pay the Lions. So can't afford that. And yeah, we lost a bit of momentum there for the first 15 minutes. The ball was traveling at great speed up and down the ground. Lions dominated in the contest. They were plus 11 in contested possessions and plus 27 in disposals. So getting their hands to the footy first and breaking away from stoppage, they're obviously a very damaging side, and they just seemed to find space all over the ground. They kicked away for a 21 point quarter time lead, up 40 to 19 at the first break. So got your
Yeah,
fossil? Oh.
yeah. Sorry, we have no. In the second quarter, Collingwood kicked 2-2-14 to Brisbane 3-4-22. But like you said earlier, Brisbane were moving the ball quickly, and they were sort of playing the game on their terms, a bit like Collingwood did. Will they sort of knew when to slow down, they knew when to quicken up, and Collingwood were trying to get them to force to kick down the line, but they were just very patient. They just moved the ball around, and once they attacked through the middle of the ground, their key forwards were giving our big fellas a lot of trouble, and they've always got good crummers at the bottom of the ball, and they played very smart. I think they only went down a couple of times, and Collingwood killed the contest, but after that they tried to attack through the middle as much as they could. But Collingwood got a couple of quick goals, and then young Steele, I think, from limited opportunities, William, he showed a little bit, which is good signs for the future, and a couple of decisions there. There was a head-eye tackle there, and we could add three on the trot, and it can make all the difference. It puts us within about three goals, but it wasn't paid, unfortunately, and then it went down the other end like it always does, and they got a goal straight away. But Collingwood, their field kicking, William, I think that's the worst I've ever seen it. Like the turnovers, especially against good sides, mate. You just can't do it. That last kick inside 50, and I don't know, there was a bit of movement in the forward line, but they couldn't be able to get three. So maybe that's due to William Brisbane's good defence. But yeah, their field kicking was not too good at all. So I wasn't very happy with that. But that's the way it is. You got to keep credit where it's due. For Collingwood, De Goey tried very hard. Houston, Dacos after a slow start started to get into the game a little bit. Cripps was very good, and I think Steele, with limited opportunities, I think he had 9 and 1 goal till half time. I think he played very, very well. But as I said, Brisbane, we seem to be chasing a lot. Whether that was wearing our players down, but Brisbane were using the ball really well. And that at half time they had a good lead. What was it, 5-3 33 to 9-8 62?
Yeah, exactly. No, they got on top there, the Lions, and really broke the contest open and into that third quarter. It was a quarter of what ifs for the Pies. Unfortunately, once again, we traded early goals with the Lions and we started to get some momentum back when De Goey kicked a nice goal from about 45 out. And McStay, well, he had one of those moments called a brain fade that many people will remember. And I think only he could tell us what was going through that mind. It looked like he was trying to do some ridiculous dribble pass, and there was a Brisbane Lions defender. He probably didn't see him, but yeah, it didn't look very good. Otherwise, I thought he played all right, but it was just a moment to forget. It probably speaks volumes of his confidence. He was nice, very, very good early, and even good late to end up with a pretty decent game. But any key forward, they just take the mark. It was a good contested mark and go back and have the shot and take the responsibility, which at times it doesn't seem like he wants it. So he's just going to own that. His form though the last 2 weeks has been pretty good, so I can't kick him too hard while he's down. And we end up winning the quarter in the end, with some good patches of footy, but unfortunately, it's just too much reliance on individual moments and too much chasing their opponents. They were once again smashed in the centre, and Brisbane just had majority of the play, even though we kicked 3-1 19 to 2-5 17. They had a few late misses, so we were sort of lucky to win the quarter in the end. But we got back within, potentially within 4 goals, but Brisbane took a 27-point lead going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, yeah, so you're right there, William. Yeah, and in the last quarter, Collingwood kicked 2-1 13, but Brisbane really put the foot down and kicked 6 goals, 4-40. The last quarter, I think it was just how far Brisbane, but like the marks inside 50s, 26-5, William, that's a big difference, and when you got people, you're doing 26 marks, it's not a bad effort inside 60. But yeah, the Collingwood players, they seem to be getting caught out. I think that's more through Brisbane's ball movement. Like the defenders seem to be 2 or 3 yards behind, or maybe they didn't think it was coming their way, and Brisbane switched the ball around fairly well. But yeah, they seem to get caught out a fair bit, and I think that's mainly from their ball movement. But they just seem to struggle all over the park. I just couldn't believe like their field kicking. Normally they're very reliable, but and Brigan's back line, they just continued to dominate. They marked the ball, then they played it on their own terms. They slowed it down when they had to, quicken up when they had to. But they look a very good football team. It was very disappointing, but 1 week doesn't make the whole season, so hopefully they can put that behind them and learn from it. But yeah, so Brisbane ran away in the last quarter, and they're just too strong for our boys on the night. But like you said, losing Dacos and a few things that might have thrown me out a bit. But the midfield we got absolutely hammered. But congratulations to Lions. They were just too strong on the night, Wolf. So and they run out easy winners in the end.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll move on to our positives and negatives soon. But just on that point with the midfield, how often, well, not very often, did you see the midfield actually streaming through the center of the ground and try and hit up targets, on the lead? It barely happened last night. They were pushing
Yeah.
our players wide, and like you said, those little kicks, they miss 15, 20 meter passes. They were kicking them about 10 meters, and they were just, yeah, they really weren't on last night. And you don't want to be too heavy reliant on individuals. And unfortunately, it looks like that when Nick Dacos and Pendlebury aren't in the side, so hopefully they may be back next week. I'd be surprised if they did risk Pendlebury being another interstate game against that Freo midfield, but they desperately need Nick Dacos back and probably some players. I think the tall stocks as well. So anyway, we'll touch on that in our preview episode later this week. But our positives, I'll try and find some out of the game. That man Rowan Steele you mentioned earlier, he. When we looked flat in that second quarter, down 6 goals, he really lit them up with a bit of his gut running and got a goal of his own before helping set up the next one to Sullivan. So, yeah, a little bit of a spark for us. And if that free kick had gone our way, we were back within 3 goals, but it wasn't to be. He ended up with 13 touches at 92%, 5 marks in that goal. So pretty decent game by Rowan Steele. That'll be my pat on the back this week anyway, Fossils. So we won't have to mention it again. But he's done fairly well, Rowan, and I hope he still gets his opportunities going forward because I think he's just going to get better the more opportunities he gets. There were a few negatives. Which one did you pick this week, Foss?
Well, yeah, no, well, there is a few weird, but I think Lipinski's nowhere near as good a form as he was last year. You just can't blame one player, but I think Lipinski, Hayes, Allen, Sullivan, and I think they've really got to have a good look at Parker, Anderson, West, and Cochran. I think we need another tall in that back line, so they're the sort of players I think they're playing today, and hopefully they can put their hand up and put a bit of pressure on because we just can't keep going the same way. We've got to get a bit more pace into the side. And like you said, a couple of times there, McQuarrie and them come out of the centre. But other than that, it was just too few times, and we got absolutely smashed. And, if you're not winning the ball out of the centre and getting down quickly, it's hard enough for the forwards as it is. But, last night it would have been pretty hard. And I think that's why I thought Mistay didn't play too bad, under the circumstances. But, yeah, they need to have a look at the forward line. They just didn't seem to be at the drop of the ball. Every time that they went for a mark, Brisbane seemed to be able to clear the ball very easily. And I don't know whether they've got to have one at the front and one at the back, but they just didn't seem to be in the right spots and got caught out a lot. But hopefully they'll learn from that. And next week we'll see what happens with selection. But I think they got it wrong. I think McRae and them bringing in Hayes and Sullivan, I would have gone for probably Parker. I don't think he's done anything wrong. And maybe look at an Anderson or somebody like that. And, like I said, West's probably up forward and Cochrane another tall. So we'll see what happens through the week and depending on who's available with the Pendles and Moore and Dacos. So we'll just have to wait and see about that one.
Yeah, well, those VFL boys, so they play later on against Coburg at 105 in Coburg. So fingers crossed a couple of them can put their hands up. And yeah, I think they're due for some changes. I would like to see those young players. Allen was okay. I'd like to see him get a couple of weeks run at it just to see
Mm.
where they're at. And it'll tell us more about them, whether they're going to be worth pursuing or whether they give other guys a chop. We got, Printable and these young Swaddling, these young players that are coming through early draft picks. So hopefully they get their opportunity at some point. And yeah, we'll really find out about our more, I'll say, slightly more mature young players like Demadia and Giath and whether they're actually going to be, our options going forward. So the quick pat on the back, Fossil. Who'd you give it to this week?
Big pat on the steel.
Ron Steele. Yeah, sorry. We'll move
Yeah,
past that one then to the
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think both agree with him, William. I think he done well, the young fella.
Yeah, no problem. So the Collingwood Connection Player of the Year votes can't give any to Dacos this week, Fossils. So unfortunately, but
Uh,
I'll start
it'll be
off
bet.
anyway. My one vote went to McStay. A good 4 goal effort. Should have been 5 if he had taken his opportunity, but no, he still played fairly well. He kicked 2 in the first and third, so or maybe it was the fourth quarter. Sorry, but yeah, 4 goals. Can't complain about that. Braden Maynard for me with 2 votes. He competed all night against a flurry of inside 50s coming in and 24 touches, 4 marks, and 3 spoils was pretty solid for us down back. And another backman, because the ball was down there a fair bit, was Dan Houston, 32 touches and 6 marks. They probably could have pushed him up a bit higher into the midfield, especially in the second half, but I guess you need someone down back. He's got an elite kick on him, and yeah, hopefully he gets a bit of help next week. and if Nick Dacos comes back, I'm sure they'll go a long way. So that's a 3-2-1 for myself. What about you, Foss?
Yeah, yeah, mine's 3-2. When I gave up special mention to McStay, I left him out of the votes rule, but anybody that kicks 4 goals out of 10, but he could have kicked 6 or 7. He had a couple of brain fades there, but no, he played well. But I gave one to Maynard. I thought, like you said, the ball was down there a lot, so he's in the play a lot, but he's a really good player. Two to Cripps, battled his guts out all night, and Houston is in very good form. I gave him three, so I think, yeah, three to Houston, two to Cripps, and one to Maynard.
No, fair enough. Nearly on the same page there. And the season leaderboard, well, it's getting a little bit closer now since Nick was absent, but he's still leading Dacos with 16. Houston's crept up to second with 12. Joshy Dacos is third on 6. Crispin Maynard with 3. And I won't bother going through the West. A couple of 2 and 1 voters with Pendles and Mixed Day the like. So yeah, no, he's doing pretty well, Nick, even considering he's missed a game already. So. Our pre-game predictions, I'll quickly run through these. Don't worry about the result, but I said Sidey would have 33. He was a bit under that. He did cop a nice heavy knock there, so I can give him a pass this week. McStay kicked 3, so sorry, he kicked 4. I said he kicked 3, so I was pretty happy with that one. You said Crispus had 29. Fossil, I haven't quite got his stats. I don't think he got that much, but Elliott's a little bit of a concern. You said another 3. I think you have to stop tipping him to kick 3 goals, Fossil.
Yeah, I think I'm putting the muzzle on him, William. But these are the sort of players, like he's kicked, I think, five in the 4 games. But they're the sort of players you got to get them back into form fairly quickly because the forward line is a bit shy as an ours, and like you get memory one week and then he goes missing, and you get mistake the next week. They just got to get that gel right, and then, like you said, if they get the midfield set up properly and they can get it down quickly, it's going to make it a lot easier for them. But yeah, I'm just a little bit worried about the forward line at the moment. Well, the back line can only do so much, and with the players coming back, well, I hope we'll sort that out, and maybe a few changes, William, for next week.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get to that in our preview episode later this week, Fossil. And one discussion point to finish off, McRae's mindset, I'll call it. The pinpoint coaching of McRae has been incredibly successful since he took over in 2022. He released the mindset of the players. We finished 17th the year before, and we started playing some fast, exciting footy and brought the structure of manage the minutes into the squad, and they took that on board and they were really having a good time playing footy. I know it's obviously good times when you're winning, but they just he says it every week, even after a loss, they want to reset. So obviously that helps when you keep you playing well each week. It's led to him having a successful 69% win rate. And regardless of the age profile, I think pretty much every week we've had a competitive team. I'm pretty sure that loss last night was the biggest of his short coaching career. So, that's not too bad considering how many games. I think he's touching around 100 now. So, that's not too bad considering. And so just a two-part question for yourself, Fossil. Do you think he has the capacity to develop young players, or is it his game style, manage the minutes built around experience, but it detracts the young players from coming through our system?
Yeah, well, yeah, but see, with the development of the players, like they've got their line coaches down there, so I'm presuming what they're doing is they're sending them to the back line coach and then to the midfield coach and then to the forward coaches. But I don't know how much say McRae has it in himself. But the thing you got to remember too is, that was all right last year and to the start of this year. But as the players are getting older, William, and they're getting injured, they're taking a longer time to get over these injuries. And I think you can see, even against St Kilda, we need more league speed into that side. I know Josh Dacos will help. And Pendles is sort of the general, but I think just around the ground, especially last night, like I think a lot of the players were tired because they were chasing them all the time, like they were trying, but they just never had the speed. When we're playing well, we move the ball quicker with the ball, which is quicker than running. But I really think that they need these juniors. But whether he's waiting for feedback from the line coaches to see if these guys are ready or not, I'm not quite sure. It'd be good to get out there one week and have a bit of a listen in. But I just think that's the way they do it. Obviously, they try them down back, try them in the mid, try them up forward. So these line coaches must all have their two box worth. But as McRae himself, he must rely on them, I would say, because he's always patting him on the back for all the assistance when we win the games, you know. So, you know, it's a sort of a hard one unless you're right in amongst them. But I think they've really got to start to look at some young, quick players. You know, they need to get more league speed into that side.
Yeah, well, Jai Saxena comes to mind straight away. I know he's very young and raw, but people were making little comparisons to Bobby Hill, and here's the other man. If we could get him back in the team, I think he'd be a bit of a line breaker. And it's probably like we touched on earlier. Lipinski has been a bit out of touch, but that line breaking of Jack Crisp and Lipinski and these sort of players, that's what really got us that attacking foray through the middle of the ground. And then they make a quick pass and the link up hand pass that come through. We're just not seeing much of that. We're very stagnant. And like I said, relying on a lot of players to, stand up like Nick Dacos and he can run, 100 meters from defense up to forward and be either kicking the goal or setting it up. So he needs some support and yeah, maybe, Bobby Hill and these sort of blokes will be the answer, but we can't rely on that in the meantime. So yeah, hopefully we can get a few boys back and like you said, get some pace in there to really, yeah, break the lines and get through their midfield. So all right, we'll wrap it up there, Fossil. But thanks, guys. It wasn't a great start to our Easter weekend, but I do hope that all the Collingwood Connection and Magpie Army have a nice Easter ahead. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll be working on that Facebook group this week, Fossil. So I'll have to get you on the old Facebook train and see how you go with that. But we'll,
Magnificent, William. Thank you for
yeah.
that. Well,
No, you're doing all right. You're doing all right for 80. So, all right. Until next time, guys. Thanks, and we'll touch base again when we do the preview for the Fremantle game later this week.
right. Thanks, Will. Thanks, everybody. Have a good Easter.
And always go Pies. See you guys.
Go Pies. Go
Bye.
Pies.